Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's begin. All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to our panel. Hi. All right, guys, thank you so much. This is MENA, or Middle Eastern North African Representation in Arts and Entertainment. This is our third time now doing this panel here at LA Comic-Con, and I think our 7th time overall doing it. Yeah. We've got a crew here filled with some original folks and some new folks, but all around just great folks here. So thank you so much. This is a panel where we discuss and highlight and even celebrate the importance of MENA representation in all forms of media, whether it's film, television, comedy, music, theater, writing, animation, podcasting, video games, graphic design. What else did I miss?
Puppeteering.
Content creating.
Content creation, yes. Content creation, yes, even in fandoms as well. Yes, thank you. So that is what we're here to talk about today. I will be your moderator. My name is Paul Zechariah. My pronouns are he, him. I am an actor, writer, and director based here in Los Angeles. I've been on the web show Mr. Student Body President. I've been in productions for BuzzFeed and Cracked. What else? Oh, my background is Iraqi, Egyptian, and Palestinian. Also, my Wednesday Addams cosplay has nothing to do with the panel. I just also am a cosplayer. This is Mary Antoinette. We've got a great group of panelists here for you guys, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves, starting with...
Hi, I am Yasma Darius Kassiri. My pronouns are he, him. I am half Persian or Iranian. The other half is mostly Irish from my white mom, but we don't blame her for that. What else is a bio? I'm an actor, writer, and producer who did not take Adderall today, as prescribed. So I'm a little all over the place. Yes, I've done some film, TV stuff. I was in Sylvester Stallone's MVP, Danny Putty's Baby Splitters. Recently, I've gone back into the theater, especially musical theater. I'm also a trans man, so I have recently been able to get back into musical theater, which I wasn't sure I'd be able to do, but I've been able to be a tenor, which has been very affirming. I've been in First Date, Cannibal, the musical, which is as crazy as it sounds, and I'm currently in the producers at Westchester Playhouse with the Kentwood Players, and I'm getting a bit into producing, actually, with this one right next to me.
Was that a segue?
Yeah, that was a very segue, by the way. I'm very
Hi, I'm Esra Darwish. My pronouns are she, her. I'm Egyptian, and I'm a second AD, a second assistant director, and director-producer, working alongside, yes. There we go. That's about it.
Hey everybody, I'm Jasmine, and if you can pronounce it, it's Yasmin. My pronouns are she, they, and I'm a content creator. I have worked with, collaborated, been featured by multiple companies, including Disney, Marvel, Viz Media, and more. I do content creating for fun, and I always try to use my platform to share representation.
Woo!
Hi, I'm TJ. Yep, that's right. I'm TJ Cyril. I'm a graphic designer, and I work primarily in television on various shows, lots of maybe network shows, sitcoms, and things.
Hi, I'm Kaveh Taherian. I'm Iranian. I'm a he, him. I also worked in film and TV for a while, but now I'm a cartoonist and a podcaster, and overall, I don't know, mid-human being.
Hi, my name is Sarah Fatimi. I am my pronouns are that bitch. I'm a stand-up comedian, actress, writer, producer, but predominantly a stand-up comic. I'm touring. I recently just got back from performing at Skankfest, which is the #1 dark comedy festival in the world. And yeah, I perform all over LA.
I'm Iranian, did I say that?
I totally forgot to say I'm Iraqi. Everyone here is brown.
Also forgot to say that I'm half Palestinian.
Why are you here?
What panel is this again? What are we doing?
So my name is Abdullah Jassim. It's a very Arabic name, and I actually I'm a comedian. I'm an actor. I'm also a chemical engineer. I had to do that for my parents, and so I just moved out here to LA, and I've just been trying to hit the Hollywood scene and see if I can break through. You know what I'm saying?
Do we have any MENA folks here in the audience?
Thank
From
you for
where?
admitting it.
Nice. One of us.
Yeah.
Nice, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, and thank you to everybody else for being here. You know, when I started this panel, it was a couple years ago. You know, I wanted to be able to have the opportunity for a bunch of us to be all here together, so we can talk about the importance of our representation, why it should also matter. Because I feel like over the years, there haven't been as many opportunities for us, like both, whether it's like on screen or behind the camera, behind the scenes, to tell our stories in the way that we want to tell them. And thankfully, there has been some progress happening over the years. It's been happening, slowly, and happening in a few places here and there, but it has been happening. And that's why I feel like with this kind of panel, I want us to be able to talk about what this kind of progress means to us. And also, when I say representation, I want to make it clear, I'm not talking about tokenism. I'm not talking about filling in a quota or anything like that. But I just want to talk about these kinds of stories that we see. We want to be able to tell them because we know them, we've lived through them. And what's great also is that we also come from like different backgrounds as well. We have different experiences. And I know for me, growing up, I got very much influenced by a lot of different films and shows, like Disney stuff, films by Steven Spielberg, and it was this kind of stuff that made me want to get into film and TV. But I wasn't really thinking about representation for a while until I want to say like in the last few years, and that's when I've been trying to make more of an effort to do that, to incorporate that into my own work. And so my first question for you guys. What was it that inspired you guys to get into what you want to do, and has your culture influenced your work currently or presently, or what you would like to do? Whoever would like to go first.
I'll go first because this is insane that this happened, and I didn't think it would ever come to this, but a couple months ago my mom was doing something called Umrah, which is a type of pilgrimage that you do in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, and on her way to Baghdad, Iraq, which is her hometown, she sat next to a girl that was freaking out on the plane, and my mom was trying to calm her down. There was other, she was kind of separated from her family, and so my mom was like, on social media, which is crazy because my parents are on social media more than I am, by the way. So, and I'm a content creator. But she was showing her like her Instagram was open or something, and then the girl just stopped and looked at paused. She's like, "How do you know this person?" And my mom follows me on Instagram. Thanks, Mom. And so she's like, "How do you know this person?" She goes, "What do you mean? How do you know this person?" And answered her back. She's like, "Oh, I'm a big fan." And my mom sat next to somebody who was, and I don't like to use that word at all. I think of everybody's just like, we're a big happy family. And so yeah, my mom's like, "Oh, that's my daughter." And this girl had another meltdown. But it was insane how it was the first time I've realized that I've reached my own demographic. And I never thought that would ever happen. Looking at me, and with my name Jasmine, I look very ambiguous looking. I don't look, I don't have a hijab on, which many Muslim women are identified by that. And I don't have any other strong features. I mean, right now I look like a raccoon right now, I hope I do. But, it's just really, it was very validating for the first time to be like, wow, I reached back home, I reached a kid from my country. And so I couldn't believe it, but that just right there, finalized what I was doing, cemented. I was like, I made that impact that I always wanted to make, and she was so influenced by what I do. So that was just very, very rewarding. But yeah, so.
Yeah, I'll follow it up. I think I've said this so many times in my lifetime, but for me, I grew up in New Hampshire. We were the only Egyptian family in the entire state, I swear to God. But film and TV, my parents had that Dish subscription for the Arabic packages, and so watching films from my own country and my own culture, they told me who I am. They told me how people back home interact with each other. We left when I was 5. And so they gave me not only my language because I could hear it and understand it, but they spoke, like Egyptian films speak a lot about the community at large, or they're a little bit more political, even if they're comedies or romances. There's a lot of like social issues in them, so you really learn who you are by watching Egyptian cinema. And growing up, like watching that, and then like seeing Edward Scissorhands and how isolated and ostracized he was, I was like, I feel like that guy. I was like, this is the medium for me. I want to be a filmmaker. If that could affect me in that way, then hopefully I could make something that would reach across to somebody else in that same way.
Yeah, I think for me growing up, just wanting to get into film and TV, if I would watch something, I want to be a part of like Indiana Jones. I describe my gender as like Indiana Jones, Humphrey Bogart, and Bruce Lee. So that's like what I grew up watching, and I would never be able to sit through a film. I would go in the backyard and act it out, and maybe that was undiagnosed ADHD in retrospect. But I don't think there was ever like a question of wanting to not do this in some way. I ask myself every day, why do I want to do this? Why do I want to be poor and depressed and like trying to make art, but it's what I love. And I think, you know, growing up Persian, like while being mixed, we don't really talk to my mom's side of the family, so I grew up very Persian. Joy in our art and life, and I'm sure my dad wishes I was an engineer on some level, but you know, I was literally holding the table doing the little light bulb dance before I could walk. So I think art was just always a part of our household, and I've been lucky that my parents have, even though I know my dad, I was in my third year of college as a drama major, minoring in criminology. He's like, you could double in bio. And I was like,
Very casually.
casually in like a program where you, like they eliminate people throughout every year. I'm like, yeah, let me just join that. But I've been lucky that they've been supportive, so that's been a big part of my journey and even transition too.
Sorry.
For me, I actually didn't know I wanted to do stand-up until I moved out here and I tried it, but I'd always wanted to be an actress, be on TV. I was really inspired by like, this is embarrassing, you know the Beatles movie Help? Yeah, you can pretend, it's fine. They did this comedy movie, which is actually apparently very problematic now. Like they used brown face on the white actor. It was a different time, you guys. I still love that movie. But yeah, they had like their female lead, and I was like, I want to be her. I've always been drawn to comedy. Comedy for me was a way of coping, like making jokes for me was a way of coping with fear, with stress, with anxiety. You know, my mom also loves making jokes at times where you absolutely should not be making jokes. So I definitely get that from her. And I feel like as far as Middle Eastern representation, it's just a lot of really sad things that happen, which are absolutely important to talk about. But I also really want to see Middle Eastern women in comedy, you know, to show that we can also be sassy and badass and funny. And yeah, it's cool to be part of that.
Yeah, I agree. Same thing. Most movies from Iran tend to make you want to feel suicidal if they're not literally about committing suicide. My experience actually is a lot like Esra's. I went to elementary school out in Connecticut, and I feel like I was literally the only Iranian person within 150,000 miles.
There was a rule in place.
Yeah. So that wasn't great. I didn't really love that necessarily, but surprising fact about me, I got bullied a lot, as you can imagine. But what I was good at was drawing, and it was something I poured myself into, and I did it somewhat obsessively. I don't know if it was because of this, but that was the one time where everybody would be like, oh, you can draw, that's really cool, and they didn't punch me in the face. So I was like, I should probably keep doing this thing if I don't want to die. So that, again, chicken or the egg, I don't know if that's the reason why, but that was something I just kept doing and kept doing and kept doing. Also, kind of to Sarah's point, comedy was a big part of our upbringing. Like I think this also happens when you have people who come from a country where you've watched it collapse and come under some sort of fascist dictatorship, and you kind of only can deal with it by making fun of everything, because otherwise the pain is too deep and it's too catastrophic. So comedy was something that I also loved. I loved a lot of Mad Magazine. I loved like any kind of comics. I watched a lot of Saturday Night Live way too young. And I think all those things kind of formulated into some weird concoction that resulted in me doing what I do now.
Put this off long enough. Similarly to a lot of the people up here, you're gonna sense a theme, I think, when we tell these stories. My parents separated when I was born, and so we're from Chicago, but my mom moved home to where her parents live in Wisconsin to be closer to home so she could raise me. So we spent a lot of time, I spent a lot of time kind of between two worlds. In Chicago, my mom's friends were all part of immigrant communities, and it was very vibrant, and there was different languages, and there was wonderful food, and it was a very different vibe. And then when I would go back to stay with my grandparents, it was literally like the whitest place on the face of the earth. And also they lived on a farm, so I was sort of in the middle of nowhere, and I just had a lot of time to be alone. And so the culture there is very kind of monolithic. The Midwestern culture is very general and generic, and I always knew, I always had a sense, because of this background, that my story was a little bit more complicated. I had sort of this extra chapter, this extra thing that I could talk about that I experienced that none of the other kids could sort of relate to. So I watched a lot of TV. And then in doing that, I think one of the first things that really affected me was Sesame Street. And I would see this really diverse group of people on Sesame Street. They were different languages, and they were sort of like they were living in a city. And I was like, oh, that's what it's like when we go to Chicago. That's when I hang out with all of my mom's friends. That's what it's like. And I think out of that experience, out of feeling very isolated, I really wanted to go to a place where then I could tell stories and I could be part of that. Because culture is kind of hard to transport. Like we could bring the food home like in small packages, but we couldn't really bring the people home, we couldn't bring the language home. But in through the medium of media, you sort of transmit that culture and you can connect with it. And so I wanted to be able to tell stories that could send those stories out to other kids that were stuck alone on their uncle's moisture farm and let them know that they were not alone and that these people existed somewhere and that they could connect with them in some way. So.
What kind of farm?
A moisture farm?
What is it?
Like on Tatooine.
Do you know where you are right now?
That's what they call Diddy.
Dark comedy fest.
So honestly, I had a completely different experience than all the other panelists. I was raised in Dearborn, Michigan. Anybody ever heard of that?
Yeah.
It's like the Taliban capital of, no, I'm just joking. But there's a lot of Arabs there, like literally 90% Arab. So I actually am like super Arab, super Middle Eastern. I speak Arabic fluently. I only know Arabic kind of thing, but I also was raised in America, like in Detroit. So it's a very interesting mix of cultures. And I just felt like I was always, I always had a character in myself, and like, I had an internal comedian, I guess. And I just felt like I could use comedy to explain the difference between all the Middle Eastern people, because the Persians and Arabs completely different.
Yeah.
And then Arabs within the Middle East are all different. We all speak differently, and we all have vibrant cultures. And I just feel like I could be able to explain it through comedy the best way. So yeah, that's kind of my journey, and that's what I'm doing right now, and it's been fun. So yeah.
Where's your family from?
Originally Iraqi. Yeah, so the Iranis and Iraqis, we don't really like each other that much. But now we kind of like each other. That's mixed feelings, you know what I'm saying? But I love you guys on the panel. Thank you guys so much for having me out here.
It starts with this panel.
But yeah, so thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, so as you can see, different backgrounds and different ways, of starting out, and different ways we've been influenced as well. And like I said, things have been slowly kind of happening, and there've been like few smatterings of like good representation and like more representation as well. And I started rewatching Lost recently. I don't know if you guys ever watched that, but that show was notable for having an Iraqi character on the show. This was like 3 years after 9/11, and he was like a really good, interesting character, still very flawed, but like not portrayed in like the stereotypical way that you would think. And rewatching that, just like it's crazy how this character existed during that time when they had it. And there have been like few more examples of like that, over the years. And I think also like the biggest thing that we always talk about on this panel, it's always brought up when it comes to like representation we saw growing up. I think we all know what it is: Aladdin. but that was a big thing for many of us growing up, and the fact that we can see someone, you know, like Aladdin, like Jasmine, like characters like that in like the same, you know, group as all the other, you know, Disney princesses, like very similar characters like them as well. But that still was very big for us, and so I'm curious, like, what are some like past or like current examples of representation that you have been like really happy to see, and like been like, and also what is something more that you would like to see?
Can I please go first one more time, just to go off of your point?
Yeah.
Because I got something to say. Give me this mic. As a Jasmine. I'm very tired of South Asians taking Middle Eastern roles. Please stop. Because Jasmine is Middle Eastern. No, I'm just looking at the camera, not you, my man. Sorry. I'm very impassioned because it keeps happening, and it's really important to Paul's point. And I want to exemplify this. Like he said, just shortly after 9/11, we got an Iraqi character. And that's amazing because Iraqis get zero representation, except for Call of Duty. That doesn't count. But the fact that we had Jasmine live action, it was a half Indian, half British girl. And now we got, if anybody's a One Piece fan, but in One Piece, they're introducing a new arc. There's many arcs in One Piece. It's over 1,000 episodes long. But it was a very clearly Middle Eastern role that people, it's Alabasta, that people nicknamed Arab Asta because it was very Middle Eastern inspired. And Princess Vivi was supposed to be a Middle Eastern character. And once again, it's a South Asian person taking the role. It's very frustrating because, like we earlier said, even between our countries, Middle Eastern is not a monolith, right? Syrian is very different from Egyptian, from Libyan, from Iraqi, from Persian. We're not the same people whatsoever. We look very different. Our languages are different. Our food is different. Ask any one of us how to cook stuffed grape leaves and everybody's gonna give you a different answer. But it's very important to have that representation, be genuine and true, and claim the representational roles that are ours. So I'm just, that's my soapbox, that's my piece. That was new news for what's happening lately in pop culture, and it was very, it felt like 2 steps backwards, once again.
To add to that, I mean, that is the dream, right? Is to like find casting people who know the difference between Pakistan and Egypt. It's one of the Arab actors, they are playing the terrorists, and then when there is an actual meaty speaking role, they are not played by Arab actors. So there is an element of erasure in that sense, where it's like, no, these are the good brown people, and these are the bad brown people. If you can tell the difference, because we can't. But the dream is to like actually see, you know, Egyptian actors out here, you know, besides Rami Malek, like the one guy, playing roles that were written about Egyptian Americans and playing, and like playing them honestly and not just casting all brown people as like one entity.
Oh man, you remind me of a time where I was bartending, I was on my phone, and the person came, so I flashed like a big smile, like, oh hi, I'm working. And someone was, and he was like, oh, you look like Jake Gyllenhaal. And I was like, God damn it. Because he played Prince of Persia. I'm like, don't give him credibility. I'm like, no. But to answer your question, Paul, about representation, it's funny. My girlfriend and I, we've been rewatching Sailor Moon, and I had a memory unlocked because I grew up watching it, and I love it. But there's a period of time where Usagi, Sailor Moon's boyfriend, who's like a mask, he kind of disappears, and he becomes the Moonlight Knight. And whenever he appears, he's in like that stereotypical Arabian outfit with like his face covered. He even has like a scimitar sword. They always play like Middle Eastern music behind him, and half the time he floats in front of pyramids and with like the moon. And I was like, I like blocked, it was like an unlocked memory. And watching, I was like, oh, maybe this is why he was like my favorite character. So I was like, finally some representation of a Japanese man dressed as an Arabian Moonlight Knight floating in front of pyramids.
It's grim. It's grim how slim the pickings are. You're just like, well, this one, they didn't even call him a name. So.
I know, he doesn't even get it. Well, it's funny too, because watching it, I'm like, oh, this takes me back to my childhood. My girlfriend, she's mixed black and white, but she's like angry for me. And she's like, because especially with the little like trill, like it sounds like a snake charmers in the background playing. That was early representation.
Doesn't play when you walk in the room. I thought that happened to everyone.
There's a show on Showtime called Couples Therapy, which is not about Middle Eastern people, generally speaking. But in the penultimate season, there was a young woman on there named Christine who introduced herself as Palestinian. She's from the West Bank and lives in the West Bank, and was here now, or her family at least lives in the West Bank, and was here and was a contestant on the show, a guest on the show with her girlfriend. And it was a really interesting dynamic because the therapist on the show is Israeli. So there was a moment when they introduced each other and it was like, well, this is awkward. And no one really knew how it was going to go, and they both kind of stuck with it and went through the show, the process of therapy and being vulnerable. And the great thing, I think, about seeing Christine on there, she was such a charming person. I think of all the different people I've seen on that show, she was like the most interesting, and the person like you're like, oh, I really want to be friends with her. She's just so delightful to see interact, and you know, she's outwardly gay. And I think that that kind of representation is like super meaningful, because there is certainly a lot of stereotypes about Middle Eastern people. When people can stand up and be like, this is also what a Middle Eastern person looked like, and it pushes back against all those stereotypes, not at all what people associate with that. And then to have somebody who is such a sort of a positive person representing this, I really, really enjoyed that is the view of Palestinians that people got. And that was 2 years ago, and so I've thought a lot over the last 12 months what those two individuals would say to each other in the context, the political context of what's going on in the world now. And just last month, I found a Guardian article where it turns out they've been talking this whole time. They actually struck up a friendship, and they kept in contact, and they were comparing notes and really trying to, from a therapeutic point of view, the therapist and Christine, from a therapeutic point of view, explain each other's emotions and feelings and what goes on in this conflict. And it was an incredibly well-written, very meaningful article. And I wouldn't say they reached a total détente, but you could see them doing the work of trying to understand each other. And I think if we're going to get anywhere in the process of creating a better world for all of us, it's that kind of approach. And the fact that these two were modeling that so well, I just really love, you know, after hearing story after story after story about blown-up children, hearing two people sit down and really with affection try to understand each other, it was really uplifting. So.
Nothing comes to mind, to be totally honest, in terms of what I think is representation that makes me happy and makes me feel proud. I think that is a large part of why I continue to do what I do, because I think that's... Phones off, please.
I don't even have friends. We're your friends.
Yeah, right, everyone's here, right?
Yeah, no, I think it's. I also don't necessarily look to. I'm a little bit older than, I guess TJ and I are probably the oldest people on this panel. So I think the idea of representation is still a weird word to me, because when you're in the 80s and 90s, that wasn't anything that anyone ever talked about or cared about or brought up. So it's not embedded in me the way that it is in younger people, which is it's a good thing, I think. I think for those of us who are older, it's like, what? What do you mean that we get to also be on screen? That's not a thing that I ever grew up with. So, you know, nothing stuck out to me is sort of the short answer of it. It all kind of sucks, so I might as well just try and do it as best as I can. So put me on the screen, I'll do it.
We'd love to see you on the screen. One of my favorite representation moments is Rami Youssef's show, Rami, on Hulu. I love that it's a comedy, and I love that they talk about serious issues within their community, culture, and religion through comedy, and they make it funny, and it has its dramatic moments, but like, I could only, the fact that especially he went to Egypt, you know, that would be my dream, to one day have a show or a movie where it shows me going back to Iran, which brings me to my second favorite representation, Persian version. It's a movie that came out last year, and unfortunately because of the SAG strikes it wasn't able to be as promoted, but it's a comedy film, and it's based on Maryam Keshavar's real life, and it shows them going, their family life in Iran, during Maryam's grandmother's time. And it was really, what stuck out to me was the fact that it actually had nothing to do with Iran's current politics, which again is very important to talk about. But it was just a movie about a family, about being immigrants in America. And because we don't really get representation like that. And the main character was a girl, and she was just funny and sassy, and it was just so cool to see Iranian women being portrayed that way.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree, like, representation isn't really something that we all see, but I'm super into superheroes, and I feel like there's never an Arab superhero. We're always like the smaller villain that they take over, like they kill him real fast, and then they go to the bigger villains. And I just feel like, it's true, we're always like the side guys, you know? And I thought about, you know, what hero is the closest to being, you know, Arab, and I'm like, you know, Wolverine kind of reminds me of my uncle, you know, he's hairy, he's angry, you know? So I really thought Wolverine was like, yo, like my Uncle Muhammad, like that's my man. Like I like this guy, and I'd walk around like, shoo, shoo, you know, like there was. But then as I got older, I started realizing like, there's no Arab superhero because no one created one. Like we can't expect the white people or any other people, to be honest with you, to create it for us. We have to tell our own story. So that's why my friend and I decided to create our own superhero. His name, well, the two superheroes, they're called Crestar and the Night Stallion, and it's an Arab superhero and a Desi superhero. He's Pakistani. And the pitch is basically, imagine you can fly and save people on a daily basis, but you had to be back home by 6 because you live with your Arab mom, and she's scarier than the scariest villains out there, you know? So it's like a comedy, action, adventure. We actually have these graphic novels, and they're like pretty cool, you know, like it's some like legit stuff. But the idea is really like, we gotta take the role. No one's gonna take the role for us. So, you know, I hope that we all can, you know, in our own ways, take the role and create our own stories.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wasn't Black Adam in the comics Arab? Or did you
There's a few Arabs, and
Because they
there's Miss Marvel, who is not Arab. She's Pakistani and Muslim. I think that's the biggest one. We have Dust, who's an X-Men. Very rare, so you're completely right. Like, really rare, you know, characters. Miss Marvel's really big. So she's like winning it for us right now. And in her comics, there is Amulet, who is a Lebanese hero. So hopefully he makes it onto the big screen. And then what was your Moon Knight, Black Adam. So there's a couple of like, but their ethnicity is not really, I mean, somewhat Moon Knight, right? But it's just kind of like a side story. At least with Camilla, who's Miss Marvel, we get a lot of her background. And you can even see it in the movie, in the Marvels, right? Where she, like in the living room, she has like the Quran in the living room, and it's like the perfect representation of kind of like what our living rooms, or what mine did as a Muslim person looked like. So if we can have more of that, I'm a big fan.
well then they made the Black Adam movie and The Rock
Yeah.
played him.
Wasn't he the Scorpion King?
Recycle, reuse.
They got the bald part right with the movies.
There we go. That's representation right there.
Are you tan and bald? No, but you are absolutely right, Abdullah. Like, it is about making your own stuff and getting it in front of your community, or everyone really, but specifically your community, and having them rally behind you and let people know, like, this is how I want the world to see me. This speaks about me. So I know a lot of us here on the panel are doing things like that. But yeah, it definitely is. Make your own stuff, get in front of people, and it's authentic. And I think that's what's lacking from a lot of the representation that is out there, is that you don't have MENA people in the writer's room. Or it speaks about like one specific person's experience of what it is to be MENA, and there isn't the nuance to it. That's why there needs to be like hundreds more of us, especially in film and television, who are making, you know, shows, movies about our own stories, like rom-coms and musicals and action films, like different genres, not just one thing.
Absolutely. Sorry. But yeah, so as you know, as we've said, you know, there, especially now, because we're kind of in a time where a lot of people in surgery are not getting opportunities because, you know, speaking up against certain injustices in the world, but this is the time for us to do that. You know, they think, you know, this will push us away, but it's like, no, we should gravitate closer towards, you know, what we want to do. And we've all been trying to kind of make different efforts, you know, like I said, you know, like with like having more, voices in, you know, like in writers' rooms, or, you know, working in whichever field you're in, and also creating, your own work. And so I guess if anybody else wants to add to, you know, like what advice would you give to, like, you know, fellow MENA folks who want to get into any of the, you know, respective industries, respective forms of media? Like, what else would you add to that?
I think for me, it's like, show up. I have a lot of beef with the MENA community because people don't go to things as much as they should. I'm like, if there's a film screening and it has a MENA character, show up, see what it is. Whether you like it or you don't like it, and go back and tell people about it. If your friends are performing somewhere, if there's, you know, just any kind of artistic endeavor coming out of your community, show up and be there. Because when you do that, you let people know that this is something we want and this is something we need, and we're here to consume it. I mean, the MENA community is not necessarily a broke community, so it's time to put like your money where your mouth is and go out and see MENA artists doing MENA things.
Anybody else want to add to that?
Yeah, I was gonna say, for people who want to get into the industry, whether it's writing or acting, don't let anyone tell you what you're good, I promise. Don't let anyone tell you what you can and can't talk about, especially pre-transition. You know, I was blonde. I feel like it's pretty common for Persians to get highlights, but it made me look more white. Testosterone's been very excited about my Persian side. But, you know, I was told by an acting teacher, like, oh, you'll never be able to play Persian. Like, you don't look at it, you can't play it. And, you know, there's people in Iran, full Persian, who are blonde, blue-eyed. Like, we're from, like, white to black. It's literally, like, the whole spectrum. But from a casting perspective, as we've kind of mentioned, they can't really tell the difference.
They don't know geography.
They don't know geography, they don't know what the people can. Also, like, you can look darker in certain seasons. But as a writer too, because like being queer and stuff, I never saw myself, so I wanted to write space, but I was writing my characters to play myself as fully white, and I was like, that erases the ability to have like MENA family members or more casting. And finally I was like, you know, like, there's no children here, and I was just like, fuck that. It's just, this is who I am. I can't separate my Persian culture. I was brought up more Persian than white, you know, like, the toner print was a little weak on my end, you know, when I came out. But that's who I am, and I think also with, like, queer MENA characters are very important to me as well, because so many people want to weaponize Middle Eastern and queerness like against each other. When you're both, people are trying to dissect you apart and weaponize your identities to get you to fit their agenda. Like, well, you shouldn't be supporting Iranian people, look how they treat like queer people. And they always think like the misconception of trans people are treated very differently in Iran than other LGBT people. Like, they've been subsidizing trans surgery since the 80s. My Iranian family has been very supportive. But there's this perception. And on the flip side, it's like, oh, you can't care about like, oh, like Palestinians, like, oh, what about the gay Palestinians? And they're like, Israel would treat them better, or things like that, which, you know, not to get political, but it's just that thing where it's just constantly weaponizing different parts of my identity, and there is no, you can't, unless you want to kill me and like dismember my body, you can't split me apart. There's no way to do it. And so I think if you're coming into this industry and you want to write and create, every piece of who you are is beautiful and wonderful, and it comes together in like a kind of like a beautiful mosaic or stained glass window, and like letting the light shine through who you are is the art that will be the most powerful for you to create.
3 things. Networking. There are a lot of MENA in arts spaces that have been created in LA this past year. They all have Instagrams. You can just show up to the events, meet people, form alliances. We're stronger when we collab together. Second, social media is your friend. Put yourself out there. Clout matters sometimes. But yeah, I mean, people complain about social media a lot, but in reality, the gatekeepers are gone now. The sky's the limit. And last but not least, don't feel like you have to be responsible to get all the representation in. For example, you know, there are always going to be people who complain, like, oh, you made this, you know, show about a Persian Muslim girl, what about the other religions, or why isn't she, you know, you show that her family comes from like a rural area, why not the nice metropolitan areas? You will be running into circles if you try and put all of the responsibility of representation on your own shoulders. Focus on the one story you want to tell, and then more doors will open for all of the other stories to be told.
Kind of to the opposite of Yas's point. Both sides are bad, but I work more on the writing and development side of it, and you end up getting a lot of feigned interest. So just like, oh, you're telling a Persian story? Wow, that's so wonderful. And it's like this total bullshit, like condescending thing that people will tell you over and over again because they don't mean it, and they're afraid of sounding like assholes, which they are, and they end up sounding way worse. So I think that's something that if I had known about that earlier, I would have probably not gotten as excited and gotten my hopes dashed repeatedly, because you got the sense that something's gonna come out of it, but in fact, it's people just trying to cover their ass and not just being blunt about like, yeah, we can't do that, or we're not gonna make that, or we're not interested in that. So, two ways to look at it. Sometimes it sucks, and there's also a niceness of just being like, okay, now I know what the problem is, instead of everyone just lying to my face about it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. We actually talked about it. I moderated a transmasculine panel yesterday. Is the people you're going to pitch your projects to are probably cis white men who are old, like realistically. And out of all our stories, with however specific, whatever culture, there's always going to be a universality. I made that word up yesterday. I don't know if it's real. To our stories, because at the end of the day, we're all humans. We're all in the U.S. There's a shared experience. But at the end of the day, if you're pitching a story, like even if there's like, it's the most MENA fucking thing on the planet, you can probably pitch it in a way that's like, this is about family. This is about like a struggle within, and it's reading the room, right? Like if you're at one of the events Sarah mentioned, like, yeah, MENA it up. If you're in a room and everyone is like pasty as hell, maybe talk about like the theme of the story, because at the end of the day, it's like, we're not just our identities, right? There's human beings behind us, and I think that's what makes great art too. Like Kaveh, his art isn't MENA explicit, right? But it's informed by his experience. So I think that's something. I think it's a good point to bring up. So I think both can be treated and finding the middle ground and figuring out who your audience is.
I was joking about clout mattering, by the way. I just meant use social media to your advantage.
I also apologize for talking about dismembered bodies out of nowhere. It kind of came back while I was in there.
We all like body horror. No, I'm kidding.
It's
no,
October.
It really is just, pick up a camera and start making stuff at this point. I think we've come to the point where, the studios aren't shooting anything anyway. So start making your own stuff and put it out there. And again, like, get your MENA friends to show up to shit. It doesn't happen without the community coming together and lifting up their artists. It's such a tragedy for me to kind of grow up out here and then go home and see just how much Egyptian art has kept Egyptian culture alive through so many occupations, and then to come back here and see that MENA art is devalued in a sense by our own community, because we're in such survival mode that we forget it's not just about getting the job and keeping the job in the sense of being an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer or anything like that. Like, you have to feed your soul, and that's what that art is. It's food for your soul, and it's there to tell you who you are on your darkest days. It's there to be like, yeah, like, I sound like you, I look like you, I'm here as well, like, you're not just on your own. So I really wish people would show up to more stuff.
Next Sunday.
Yeah!
I guess as the probably oldest person up here, I'm going to channel all of the Middle Eastern dads up here, and I'm going to say that you should not come to Hollywood, you should get a real job. I'm only half kidding. This is the most challenging I think the industry has ever been, certainly in my life, and probably ever. It is very, very unstable to get a job in the industry right now. And so that has a good part and a bad part. The bad part is that obviously it's hard to get a job. And no one knows how long they're going to work. And so what that has meant is that the people who are getting the very few jobs that there are the people who have those sort of closed communities, and the people that get that have those structures where they get hired over and over and over again because they're in the inner inner circle or whatever. And so if you are trying to break in, especially if you're part of a marginalized community, it makes it that much harder because there is no work to begin with, and the few work that there is going to go to the club. So be prepared to enter into an industry whose future is very uncertain. The good part of that is, I think, that there is more room than ever to make your own projects because the studios aren't making them, as you said. So there's not a lot of really original stuff coming out, except for what individual creators are creating on their own and saying, hey, look, buy this. So there is a huge avenue to do that. And so if you do want to work in the industry, again, be prepared to kind of have a fallback plan and not necessarily get a stable industry job that is going to carry you through until you get that project, if you get that project going, and then work on your own stuff. Have your own sort of chart your own course, your own identity, your own thing, know what that is, and really work to develop that into a mature kind of thing that you can take in.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, because like the people who do end up buying, especially films and distributing them, they do pay attention to whether your short film is getting some kind of traction within these communities, and they know they have money. I mean, even on a larger scale, when you look at like the Bad Boys film that came out recently, and how really shocked because Black and brown people went to go see it, and like, yeah, they have money too.
Yeah.
So
That's why.
because why?
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
The directors of Bad Boys and Miss Marvel as well are two Middle Eastern Muslim guys. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just like, they're not going to do you any favors. You have to know where you're gonna put your money, and you're gonna have to find the art that you wanna see, and if it doesn't exist, fucking make it. Yeah.
There's a fun anecdote. I used to work for a mouse-based company, and in downtown Disney, before it closed in Orlando, there was a club called the BET Soundstage, and when they were opening it up, nobody wanted to work there because there was this rumor that black people didn't tip. So they finally opened it up, they finally got people to work there. It ended up being the most lucrative place to work.
That's, yeah. Yeah, that's fucked up, man.
I think we, Bill, did you get to answer this, or?
No, I just, oh, yeah.
I'll just bring up the importance of social media. Like if you actually really are interested in getting into the arts, I know a lot of people hate it and hate putting themselves out there, but right now it's your opportunity. Like at any point, a video can go viral and it can change your life. We all know Haktua. And she literally has like I think the podcast, like the third most popular podcast, for spitting on things. Like, come on now. So I just feel like, you just take advantage if you have any kind of, anything that you're passionate about, just put a camera in front of you and do it. And I guarantee you eventually you'll figure out the algorithm and you'll do a great job and it'll open so many doors for you. So, yep.
All right, last one. Speaking of, putting things out there and getting things, this is the opportunity for you guys. If you are currently working on anything right now, MENA or not MENA related, anything that you guys are working on that you're passionate about, that you get out there to the MENA community, or just get out, to the public in general, what is it?
Sure. Like I mentioned, I'm in the producers right now with Kentwood Players at Westchester Playhouse. The show is mostly ensemble, but I'm also Brian in the Keep It Gay. I get to play a leather daddy. And then a lot of it's a small cast, so we're in it a lot. It's gonna be a lot of dance, tap dancing, all that stuff. And there's actually another Iranian in it, in one of the more lead roles, which I'm shocked, which is crazy, because there's you throw a stone and you get a white person in it, right? And then there's one other Iranian in it. Also, finally getting into pre-production for the short that Ezra's going to be directing and producing with me, so follow us to get more information on that, and then together we are...
So this Sunday, the 13th, come on down to Fangirl Cafe in West Hollywood. We're doing our screenings as part of the 1001 film nights. We're going to be screening A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. And before we watch, the feature film, we have a short film by a Palestinian filmmaker that we'll be screening. And we're gonna be running these screenings throughout the year. The idea is to just give a platform to not only, Middle Eastern films that have already been made that you might be familiar with, some that you haven't seen, but also to give a platform to up-and-coming filmmakers. So come on out, grab a coffee, grab some food, and enjoy the film.
Yeah, you hosted one a couple weeks, or I guess a month or two ago, right? How long was it? For
Yeah.
Cairo Station?
Yeah, Cairo Station. If
I-
you haven't seen it, it's fantastic.
I went to that screening, I was like, this movie's amazing. It was like a weird, like, horror film directed by Fellini or something. It was an unreal, I would have never come across it, I had never even heard about it, so I was super stoked.
Yeah, and it's crazy how like how little attention these films get throughout film history. And
Yeah.
this film predated. Cairo Station is sort of about an incel who works at a train station, is obsessed with this woman, and it comes to the point of like violence and his delusions. And when you watch it, you look at sort of what people, you know, nowadays are doing on the internet, and you're like, this is the same guy. This character has always existed. But it also came out years before Peeping Tom, which was considered the first the first film to show a sympathetic view for a serial killer. But that's only because it was an English-speaking film. Like Cairo Station did it long before that. So it's worth coming out to these things and seeing these films because they're fantastic and they stand the test of time.
Yeah, so it's the 13th at 6 p.m. at Fangirl Cafe, and we're doing a costume contest.
Yeah.
Halloween.
It was also funny to all be there together. I remember, Esther, there was a bunch of allies that came that were, non-MENA people, and the three of us in the corner were laughing at very specific,
Yeah.
small little things that no one else thought was funny because that sounded insulting, but culturally for us, we were like, they're talking shit, it's great.
Yeah.
And it was such a nice experience for all of us to be in that theater together because it was, again, it's really hyper-specific and you would not have gotten it if it was like, oh, just watch this movie at home.
Yeah.
And you don't need to be MENA to show up. This is about building community and bringing our culture to wider audiences as well. So,
Yeah. And we have a flyer here if you want to scan the QR code for more info or come talk to me and yes.
Anybody else want to promote anything online?
Yeah.
Yeah. You said you wanted to do a sort of show and tell.
Yeah.
So I brought a couple of my books. So I'm a writer illustrator, I'm a cartoonist. So I do graphic novels and I also do regular books. I do all kinds of stuff. But in relation to specifically what we were talking about, of how you incorporate yourself or your culture into the work, it doesn't have to be outright. So in my case, my last book is called Mothman's Compendium of Southern California Cryptids. And the gag is that Mothman comes to Southern California to look for other cryptids and he ends up writing a travel guide. And it's really just a way to make fun of all these different neighborhoods throughout Southern California. And as far as what's relevant to this panel, of course I had to have him go to Westwood.
Nice.
And when he goes to Westwood, he finds the Seymour, which if you guys know anything about the Shahnameh, which is the very famous book of, what is it, like a 1,000-year-old, long poem, kind of like, it's all these stories. That's where my name comes from as well, by the way. It's from Kaveh, from the book of Shahnameh. But anyway, I tried to fold this idea of this bird, who's the Seymour, who's been around for thousands of years, and it holds all the knowledge of everything that's ever happened. So it's this wise thing that we all love. And the gag that I wrote is this Seymour comes to Westwood, and it uses all of its knowledge to help all these Iranian immigrants who had to flee from Iran in the 1980s to all get advanced degrees. And that's why they're all lawyers and doctors and all that stuff.
You see, they have real jobs.
Yes, exactly. So, kind of to what we were talking about earlier, it's like, okay, it doesn't have to be this like, oh my God, I fled Iran and I was persecuted and it's terrible. It's like, how do you take this thing that we all know and you make it kind of goofy and fun? That's not the whole book, that's just one part of it, but I thought that that was something that people might appreciate on this panel. And then so I have a graphic novel series called Perma-Friends. This is science fiction. This takes place in the future. Humans all go extinct. We're not around to explain why we did any of the things that we did. We're all just gone. We're like dinosaurs. So robots and animals and whatever creatures that are left, they all take over the earth and we sort of don't matter anymore. And a lot of the gags from this come from the fact that we can't explain why we did the thing. So they're all taken and run with in weird ways. And it's about these three characters. And one of them is Harpo, who's this ad bot who's roamed the earth for 1,000 years trying to sell ads to people, but there were no more people around. And it's about how the three of them meet. So it's Harpo, Esteban, and Byron. And in terms of, I'm just going to say explicitly what it was that inspired these characters is Esteban is a penguin who had to escape the poles because they melted. And because of that, he's sort of got this again, this is comedic, but he's this neurotic person who feels like he can't ever sit still. because the home that he came from no longer exists. And to me, like, I didn't want necessarily to have it be this thing that's like, hey, this is Middle Eastern, this is Iranian, this is this, but emotionally that's what it really feels like, particularly when my family, who's from Iran, feels like they can't ever go back to that place, and that place doesn't exist for a litany of reasons. And the other character is Byron, who's this snow person, is what I call him, and he's got this keffiyeh on, not necessarily for any political reason, but because I thought, I love scarves, by the way, I'll wear any scarf. But I was like, I've never seen a snowman with a Middle Eastern style scarf on, and I wanted to incorporate that into it. And I just thought that the image sounded funny and kind of insane, because usually when you think of that kind of a scarf, you think of desert, unfortunately. So I was like, what if somebody got to put that scarf on the snowman? And I thought it was fun. So another thing is an example of ways that you can incorporate it that aren't outright, but are drawn from my experiences and things that I thought I would never see, that most people probably wouldn't have even noticed unless they were sort of looking for it in the first place. But yeah, if you're interested, my website is blacksmithfilms.com. I have them there. I'm not actually exhibiting at LA Comic Con this year, unfortunately, but if for some reason you're going to be in New York, you can come to that. I'll be at New York Comic Con in a couple weeks. And find
Nice.
out. But otherwise, you can go to my website. I also host a podcast called 500 Open Tabs once a week. I take a random topic that I have a million tabs open on my phone, and I finally read it, and I explain it to my co-host. She does the same. We have no idea. We go into a blind every week. It's really fun. I recommend it. Not just because I'm on it, but it's fun. I'm sorry, I took up too much time.
No, you're good. No one's coming in to kick us out.
For me, I just want you to follow me on Instagram, please. You'll have your phones out. It's at SARAHFATEMI official. I have shows in LA all month. I usually post my show flyers, where I'm gonna be, what time. I also post a lot of comedy sketches. Some of them are identity related, some of them are not. If you're easily offended, sorry. Definitely come see my shows. It's funny, one of my coworkers is actually here, and he didn't know I do stand-up, so I guess I'll see you in HR on Monday.
Honestly, I just, my business partner and I, he's a director, and we initially had this idea, we filmed it actually as a live action pilot. It was a high production quality live action pilot, and then we ended up chopping it into like a trailer, and we dropped that trailer about a year ago, and thankfully it went viral on social media, everybody loved it, so we had a company reach out to us and say, hey, could you create a graphic novel based off of the story? So then we're like, hell yeah, we can make a graphic novel. So we actually have the co-creator of The Boys, his name is Derek Robertson. He actually helped us write this as well, so he really loved the idea and the angle that we had. And it's really just about, an Arab guy that has a really thick, the best one here, everybody loving me, okay, thank you very much. I love the white people, okay? So I play the character. I play the character, and it's just, it's a really fun trailer, but also the graphic novel itself is hilarious and action adventure, and like the villains are like real serious villains. Like we actually put more effort into the villains than we did into the superheroes, because we want bad people, you know what I'm saying? Like it makes the story so much better. And last thing I'll say is like you also get the cultural side of things, like the mom, like my mom, the character. She's trying to marry off her son, and specifically how we do it in the Arab side, she's trying to marry off her son to like her friends' daughters, for example. And it's just like a whole setup thing, and it's interesting to see a character that's a hero but has to also abide by the Arab Muslim rules, So my Instagram is AbidJ. If you guys want to reach out, I can send you the link. A cool part about this actually that I don't talk much about, but we dropped the graphic novels we were supposed to drop them last year around October 15th, but then October 7th happened. And we can't have Arab superheroes when the Arab children are out there dying, so we ended up holding off our launch, but then we thought of something cool where we started a campaign called Buy a Book, Give a Book, Be a Hero. And the idea is if you buy the graphic novels, we will print out a version in Arabic for the kids in Gaza, and we have a team that's there that's actually supplying food and shelter, and they said that they can get the books in. So we're actually translating the books. The first one's completely translated, the second one is getting translated now. As soon as we finish translation, we're going to be shipping around 5,000 copies. So, that's also part of the thing that moving forward, any book that's sold we are gonna donate one for some kids that need a little bit of imagination. So thank you guys so much for coming.
Thank you for doing this. TJ, anything else? Anything to promote?
I don't, because I create content for other people, I don't have any personal content of my own, but I can plug something that is local. Outside of the con, if you guys want to go to an event, after you go to 1001 Film Nights, an organization called For Your Viewing Pleasure has been doing like pop-up markets, and actually Sarah took me to the first one. And it's a great organization because the market is full of joy and it's a lot of fun, and there's dancing and there's lessons and things like that. But also they're raising a lot of money to help kids in Gaza and stuff. And I think the last one they did, they raised like $48,000 to help kids. So it's if you see one of those, it's a really good time and a really good cause.
They're also, For Your Viewing Pleasure is like created by a queer Palestinian woman. They do like a clothing line too, it's pretty cool. I have some of their stuff, it's great. Yeah, they're wonderful. I'm just saying, like, it is a really cool space. You should definitely go check it out.
As for me, you guys can follow me on Instagram, Hollywood Forever. I post a lot of stuff about, film, TV, projects that I'm working on, the cosplays that I do. I do a lot of cosplaying, cross-dressing cosplaying as well, so you can check me out on that. And, like I said, we appreciate people coming out to these panels and the fact that we get to talk about, what we talk about here, have this opportunity, have this platform, because it starts with stuff like this, so we can talk about the things that we've liked and the things that we need to improve on. Like I know casting, was a big part of it. Casting the right kinds of roles, on screen, and a lot of that falls on producers and casting directors. They don't really blame the actors except Jake Gyllenhaal. But the fact that we get to do this is amazing, and we appreciate you guys for coming out and supporting us here, and also. A big thank you to our panelists here. Let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you guys so much for coming to this panel. Thank you to our friend Sreejith for recording the panel as well. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to talk to us. You can talk to us outside. We hope you have the rest of a good time here at LA Comic Con.